Welcome back to Middelovo in KZN, the Virginia Trails, on a farm that's been in the same family for over 140 years. This was going to be the scene where we would decide the championship for 2020. Brett Swanepoel was in great form, even though he'd lost around about a pint of blood on day number one, but still managed to take the overall and the outright lead in his category. Everyone now was biting their fingernails. The one man that was a no-show, though, in the queue was Kenny Gilbert. He'd had a massive crash, already injuring a broken elbow, and he was a no-show, meaning he was out of the championship. So it was up to Charon Moore to simply bring it home to nail down his first ever national number one plate. A much earlier start this time around, so it was going to be cooler running and one lap less than the previous day, as the day simply ran too long and the riders were more than fatigued. Brett Swanepoel knew exactly what he had to do. He was going to go off and simply chase into the wind, the exact same track and layout. And in the post-race interview after day number one, Swanepoel saying, "It may not run faster, it'll be more familiar for sure, but it may not run faster. It is chopped up and whooped up after 5 laps of racing for all of our national championship runners." Cox was in the 2 spot, and Cocker was in 3rd. He would do what he could, but mathematically it was impossible. He was realistically looking at a number 2 for the championship. Charon Moore was in the sweet spot, but if he felt pressure at the beginning of the season when he signed his factory deal, now it was pressure plus VAT. He had to finish this race to nail down his number 1 plate. It was all his to lose at this point. Same situation for Brett Swanepoel, but as he proved on the first day in the Virginia Trails, he wasn't making any mistakes. Even when he made a crash, he was still able to take the win. Brad Cox was looking like he was going to be able to run away with it. Today, it looked like Dav Cocker may have had his match, but he was not going to be able to close things down. Jared Coetzee had a much better day on day number 2. Certainly it started off better, but it was going to be a gnarly one. The Pepsi Plastic squad just making some marks on the climbs as they walked around out there on the trails. Not taking any risks today. Moore knew exactly what he had to do. Simply bring it home for the finish. For Coley, it was all about getting some glory in the final racing laps of the championship season. He was out of the championship running, having missed 1 or 2 rounds, but he was going to have to just see if he could take the final bit of glory. Dav Cocker gave us and everyone out there a little bit of a heart attack. This section was known as Pikes Peak. If you dropped off the other side of that, you would know about it. It would be more than a rebuild on the bike, put it that way. Ryan Peltzer was doing what he could. He actually enjoyed the trails, he said, just couldn't run the pace of the top 2 out front. Already now climbing up inside of the top 10 overall was the top 125, as Jared Coetzee almost followed suit in the wheel tracks of Cocker. The riders were starting to push the limits as the track had now chewed up. Remember, they'd have hit that climb 5 times the previous day, and it would have offered a little bit more traction in the previous day. Now overnight, dusted up, and again, no rain to try and calm the track down. But familiarity breeds speed, and all riders were running a little bit faster. Unfortunately, no time to look around and enjoy the amazing terrain. Sugarcane on your left, gorges and woods on your right-hand side, and the drone giving us some up-close and personal footage. That was Wade Blau that just popped out. He had no one to play with today, and pretty much the whole way through the championship season. He was eyeing up his first big number 1 plate for the Roos KTM squad. Wilson also was on the verge of walking away with his big number 1 plate, his first ever in his 2nd time of running in the high school 125s, and he needed to do it as well because he'd already said that he was jumping out to the 250s in 2021. For Brett Swanepoel and Cox, they were just enjoying the trails and dominating out front, very closely matched on lap times as well, even though they were running on a 350 Husky and a 250 KTM respectively. The second of the 250s and 3rd overall was Dav Cocker, who just knew he wasn't going to be able to get onto the wheel tracks of Cox based on the lap times and the running of the previous day. Same situation for Jazz Coetzee. The forest that had looked prime and offered tons of traction on the previous day's running was now chewed up, whooped out and blown out, with a couple more rocks starting to show and rear their heads on the big descents. With a background in multi-racing, Swanepoel and Cox were just untouchable on all assets and facets of the terrain. Marco Cocci was trying to chase down a top 3 run in the seniors. He was dicing it out with Hunter Simon for the championship, and Pepper looked like he had a much better run of it at the final round, trying to chase the numbers in the Masters category as well. Dav Cocker showing us how it's done on the big descents, and Jazz looking like he was going to take another number 2 plate going forward into the next season. He was desperate to get that number 1. Remember, he has tasted victory in the past. He has taken championships, but this time around, just getting beaten on the final day of running. That looked like it was Big D Gray out there racing in the regionals. For Charon Moore, even though he was out of the running for the top 5, he was still light years ahead of the rest of the field in the Big Banger OR1s and ahead of one of the locals who really knew these trails like the back of his hand. That was Cole. Remember, he's a former champion in the OR2 category. Paltzer was on song as well. Looked like he was going to cement his number 3 spot in the championship. As we go on board and check out the drone footage courtesy of Warren Burton as we fly over Peter Steenbank's farm. On the descent, Matty Wilson was not only inside of the top 10 overall, but was starting to build pace. Warren Burton's drone footage showing us JC Nienaber and Ian Rawle battling through the rocks, but down in the forest, a 1-5 high schooler was in big trouble. We caught up with the RBS Yamaha of Cox.
My bike just seized. I'll change the plug and check.
Remember, Dylan Cox won round number 1, but since then it's been the Matty Wilson show. It looks like it was the end of the championship charge for the local rider. Wilson was going to have no one to play with in the late laps, meaning that he was one step closer to his big national number 1 plate. The track was chewing up and the lap times were getting faster and faster for all riders concerned. And weren't they happy that the laps had been trimmed by 1 in the overnight? The organisation committee from KZN making a good choice to try and trim it back and start the race a little bit earlier on the final day to try and avoid that midday heat, which on day number 1 was climbing into the late 30s. Pepper was still out there trying to bag his points for the Masters Championship as we closed in on the end of this amazing event. Brett Swanepoel went 2 for 2 on the championship, saw the checkers twice in 2 days of racing, and was the champ.
Yeah, for sure. I had a really good day. Yesterday I felt a bit blown at the end of the day, and today I was actually a bit worried. But going today, I just found a good rhythm and felt like I could really push it and actually enjoyed the race the whole day. So yeah, the team did an awesome job. The bike was good. We all worked well together. TBR did a great job helping me do a few settings after yesterday. So yeah, we just really had a good day and can't be happier.
The flags were flying. Jazz Kutsia came in after carrying all that awesome momentum forward from Rhino Park, but in KZN he had to settle for 2 spots and the 2 spot in the championship. For Brad Cox, he was in sublime form in KZN. No one was getting near him. 3rd overall and a big number 1 plate for the champion.
Stoked, back to back. Couldn't ask for a better weekend. Yeah, Davin made it hard on me this weekend, but yeah, managed to come out on top and yeah, super happy. Another championship to the books, so can't complain. Huge ups to my team, Brother Leader-Tread, KDM, my family, my girlfriend, my brother, Shandor, Kev, all of the guys. Thank you so much.
Standout ride for the local who had to push his bike across the line on day number 1. Calvin Hume walked away with an amazing top 5. But the big story was in the Big Banger OR1s. After years of trying, the big number 1 plate finally goes to Charon Moore. What a way to pay back KTM for their faith, signing him at the beginning of the season.
It's honestly an unbelievable experience. I mean, I grew up racing, driving here. We past Eston, where the Sugar Belt was for many years, and I remember being a kid there, getting like lost in the racing, and to be here standing with this number 1 plate, it honestly feels surreal and it feels like a dream come true. Like all the guys I looked up to as a kid, and finally get to tick that box. So it's such a great feeling.
Looking at the rest of the categories, Blau taking another win, undefeated on the championship, nails down the seniors number 1 plate for the first time for him. And in the high schools, Matty Wilson, number 1.
Yes, no, today went very well, much better than yesterday. Surprisingly, it was more energized road, better, faster laps, well, more consistent laps. But yeah, I just want to say thank you to MCA and Husqvarna for the perfect bike and for the perfect season. Couldn't ask for much more.
Yeah, man, it's a long time coming, and I'm glad I've eventually pulled it off. But I had good support today and great stuff from the roof. The Roost guys have really helped me a lot, and KTM. So thanks very much to everyone.
And in the Masters category, a master stroke for the multiple champion Wayne Farmer, going back to the smoker.
Pretty excited, you know, after this year, what we've all gone through, to come back and get racing going number 1 was pretty cool. but to take another championship, yeah, it's been a good year. Been in a lot of pain with my back this year, but so we're fighting and we've done it.
And here's confirmation of your champions for 2020 in the OR1 Big Bangers. Sharon Moore beating out Nienaber and Delport. Brett Swanepoel, your champ once again in the OR2s, ahead of Kutsia and Ian Rawls, squeaking it into third place. For the OR3s, the season has been about two riders. This time, Brad Cox ends off on 97, 4 points ahead of Cocker, and then Pelzer in third. Matty Wilson wins out in the high schools. Dylan Cox problems, dropping him down to third, and Swanepoel jumped up to second. Then in the seniors, Wade Blau on 100, the perfect score, ahead of Marco Cocci in second and Hunter Simon in third. And for the Masters, Farmer, the champ, ahead of Poole and Pepper. All of this South African cross-country racing action was proudly brought to you by Pepson Plastics in association with Yamaha, KTM, and Husqvarna Motorcycles.